So it is 3 o'clock, and I will call this meeting of the ECUA Board to order. We're having some technical difficulties, so we may have to revert to the style we once had before we became so fancy in our technology, so we may be voting by hand and other things. We'll see how we limp along. The invocation and pledge will be led by Dr. Walker. Dr. Walker.
I invite you to join me as we stand. Almighty God, I thank you for life, and I thank you for all of us to have lives worth living. Let us take advantage of the opportunities that we have to be of service to our fellow man, to our society, our community, in ways that will indeed make our lives worth living. In your name I pray, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. Walker.
You're welcome. Yes,
So
so move. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Does anyone have any additions to the agenda? Nothing shows up here, so you're going to have to get my attention. I do want to add under unfinished business meeting times, if you could include that. If there are no other additions, please vote on the agenda as amended. Guess we can. All in favor? Okay, it passes unanimously. There are no public hearings. The next item is open forum, and I have two pink sheets. If anyone here wishes to address us and they have not filled out a pink slip, they're over there. Please do so before coming to the dais, to the podium. The first is Dr. Gabriela Davis. Hello, Dr. Davis. If you will punch the speak button where you are, it should activate your microphone. And if you'll give your name and your address.
Sure. My name is Gabriela Davis. My address is 6020 Songbird Drive, Pensacola, Florida. I'm here today. First off, the problem that I'm here today has been addressed, and to a certain extent it has been somewhat resolved. But the process in which it took me to get there, I think, is why I'm here. I don't think I'm a unique person. I think if something happened to me, it's more likely probably to happen to someone else. My wife would have been here. Let me speak in her absence. She's worked with the school board, and school teachers going back to a 5-day week, and she's an administrator. So she's had to go to Bellevue, where she's administrator at, and I was hoping she'd be here, but she hasn't made it here yet. I'm here to address this board on three things very quickly. One is unprofessional customer service. The second one is racial discrimination, selective enforcement. And the third is fair and partial. I'll tell you how I got that real quickly is that I am also the administrative pastor for Deliverance Tabernacle Christian Center. We have, under our bishop leadership, we have elected to join with HUD in providing housing for those who are low economic status. So the church in turn has purchased quite a few properties, and we're beginning to do both, build home and also buy manufactured homes and place those homes on those properties. That task was assigned to me, and in turn, I started about 9 weeks ago putting this together before I even purchased the home to make sure that first we could afford it and the cost was within our means. I came here to ECUA along with Gulf Power and all the other utilities to learn the costs. When I came here, I was told to go to customer service. I told customer service at that time that I had one piece of property that we wanted to put 3 units on. And I wanted to find out the cost to put those units on and if that property indeed could in turn have those 3 units. I also went to to the building department and met with Horace, and I was told I could. When I came to customer service, they then said they had to be determined by engineering. In turn, we called engineering. I told engineering what I wanted to do very precisely and gave them the address and everything. And they said, and I quote, no problem, you can do that. That was 9 weeks. So when it came time, I purchased the home. So at least I say I'm talking about the church. We purchased the home, and we were in 3 weeks of that delivery. So I came back as I was instructed to in turn pay the tap fees, the impact fees, and those things of that nature. When I came back this time, everything changed. Because when I got to customer service, first off, first I was calling on the phone. I do not understand, although I've been told that the call center here is a very busy call center with 1,800 calls coming in. But I do not, out that 1,800, I was never told how many come to a supervisor, because I asked specifically for one. And it takes me forever. I would call, and one day I called over 4 times, and I never got to anybody in less than 15 minutes. I in turn recorded those calls, and I gave it to Mr. Gabriel Brown and told him, at which he told me he would check the calls and find out what happened. What the bottom line is this. When I got there, I found out that there was an engineering problem. There was no laterals, only one. And we would need additional laterals. And those additional laterals could cost anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000, in this case, $1,700. That was a cost we were not prepared to pay. Because we're a nonprofit, we're limited in funds. The problem when I found that out too was that 9 weeks ago, I went to find this out. And I said, wow, I've already done this. I was told this was going to be done. We've never gone out onto that project if we've known it was going to be that kind of cost. I am proud to say that you had one employee, Mike, who went the extra effort to make sure it was done. I want to thank you to those who approved the delay in the billing of that cost. But when I came back the last time to find out exactly, I'm speaking with engineering, to find out exactly what that cost was going to be is where the biggest problem came in. I came in this building with my wife. Before I came, I called numerous of times and never were able to get through. So finally I said, I'm not going to call. I was placed on hold, and I came here. I walked through the front door. They told me that I wanted to speak to someone in the I call it in the upper level. Someone who, in turn, besides customer service, since what customer service told me that it was not their issue, it had to be engineering. I came back to this desk here. The young man was at that desk. I told him, I said, I need to talk to someone in the upper chambers because, again, I'm not getting what I need to do. And I told him briefly. He said, no, you've got to go to the customer service down the hall that way. I said, I just went there, and they told me to come down here, that I need to talk to somebody here. No, you've got to go to customer service. I said, sir, I'm tired of being bounced back and forth. And I'm talking to him in the same tone that I'm talking to you in now. I said, I'm tired of being bounced back and forth. I've been told to go to customer service. Customer service said they can't help me. It's an engineering problem. I had to come down here. He said, well, I'm telling you, you've got to go back to customer service. I said, I tell you what, tell me when the board meets, and I'll just come and go to the board meeting and ask them to help me. He in turn said, well, there it is, there, and gave me the direction. By the time I left here, went down to the end of that hallway, and I was standing inside talking to one of the customer service rep, your security guard came up. He didn't see us inside that one. He came to the cashiers, and his exact word was, what's going on here? That's what he asked the cashier. The cashier said, nothing. He said, he was told by a cashier nothing. And then he said in his words, I was told that we had a person causing trouble and asking for the higher-ups. Had no problem with that, but the nature of him doing that, he put his hand on his gun. And he stood there at the witness stand. This is how he stood. This is the pose he stood talking to the cashier with his hands on his gun. He didn't realize that my wife and I was inside that booth. Now, I know there's a lot of things going on in this world, and a black male coming in, maybe, and I was dressed in the same attire I'm dressed in today. Never raised my voice, never cursed. I didn't know who called, because you had 2 employees coming this way, and you had 2 other white employees standing there. When I came back to the desk, I asked the guy, I said, why did you have to call security on us? I said, I wasn't belligerent, I wasn't howling. He said, I didn't call them. But the customer service agent who I was talking to made the comment that she had to go back and talk to Gabriel Brown. Now remember, she said, I got to go back in the back and talk to him. I called him, she said, exact words, called him. And I'm asking myself, my wife said, what you got to go back there for? She got a phone right there. So I don't know if she called or someone called, and security came, and it's not the manner in what he said, it's the manner in with his pose, hand on his gun, telling you, you got somebody causing trouble, not because he was screaming or hollering, but because he asked for somebody higher up. I reported this to Mr. Gabriel Brown. I haven't heard anything else back from him. He said he would look into it and let me know. I have not heard anything back from him. So those are the problems I've had in this matter, that in turn I started out on a process 9 weeks intentionally to make sure I got all the permits, make sure I crossed every T and dotted every I. But yet, dealing with your customer service has been nothing but a chaos. Because one minute they say do this, and then I do that, and then they say they can't do that. I went to engineer, I talked to a Brian. I really don't want to talk to him again, because again, he gave no input. He just simply told me, we got other people besides you, so I can't tell you when we're gonna get to you. It may be 3, maybe 6, maybe 8. And even when I explained to him that we have homes that we purchased, and I can't turn them around because we've already paid the price, over $80,000 in cash, and they're en route here from Georgia manufacturing. He really didn't care. It was like, so what? And that is the nonchalant attitude I receive. But again, having my wife here, and for us to endure that kind of abuse from your security, and to be felt that I was a threat merely because I asked for higher ups, because I refused to talk to a department that had already sent me down here, not once but twice. They'd already said they couldn't do anything for me, so why send me back there? I don't understand that. And I think the board should be made aware of it. And as I started off, I said, I don't believe I'm unique. I may be the one that ever brought it to you, but I don't think I'm the only one this has happened to.
And Mr. Davis, thank you. I've given you some latitude. But I have a board member with a light on, so if you'll just stay there, if you may. Mr. Perkins.
Well, I'd like to apologize, number one. I mean, that's, you know, it does sound like there's a lot going on, and the customer service wasn't what it should be. I mean, there may be another side of the story, but from what you're saying, that's what it sounds like. Incidentally, you said your wife's at Bellevue Middle School?
Yes, she is.
Yeah, my cousin's a principal there, Miss Adams.
Yeah, I know Miss Adams, her
Wonderful.
son, and my
Wonderful.
grandson, in fact, they stay at my home constantly.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Bobby too?
Bobby, yes.
Okay, well, good. But I really applaud what you're doing with affordable housing, and that's a problem. I brought this up, you know, at our last meeting, and I too try to do the same thing as you, and I didn't get any sense of urgency either. I felt like there was a little bit of nonchalant thing, and if I'm a board member and it's dragging out, I'm getting nonchalant. I mean, I imagine, you know, I wouldn't be surprised that was happening to you as well. In fact, I ended up abandoning the project I was going to do due to the cost, and ECUA was the highest cost out of all of it. And I asked if there was anything that we can do when we're looking at affordable housing to, you know, offset some of those costs. Ms. Sorrell, our director, got back with me and said, no, by our bond covenants, we can't waive or do anything to help with those costs, unfortunately, which I wish we could. But the very least we can do is expedite things for people and have a sense of urgency and give them all the information they need up front. I mean, so I hope we can look into this and figure out, you know, how we can improve upon it, because we're going to have a crisis with affordable housing before too long in this area. You know, the rents are getting too high. A lot of people don't make the wages to pay the rents. The local churches now are starting something called Family Promise. I don't know if you've heard of that or been involved with that, but you're probably going to get reached out to from some other churches. They're starting Family Promise to help with homeless families to try and get them eventually back into a home, you know, and letting them stay at church facilities on alternating weeks until they can get them into a home. But, you know, it's a problem that needs to be nipped in the bud, and I do appreciate you coming up here and letting us know, because a lot of times we wouldn't know if somebody didn't come up and fill us in on it. So hopefully the project will work out. You'll get people in the houses, and we'll improve in our customer service in that regard.
Thank you.
Ms. Campbell.
Yeah, Mr. Davis, thank you for driving all the way out here, and thank you for telling us your story. This is the first time that I've ever heard a story like that, and I've been here almost 7 years. So I apologize to you and to your wife for that unfortunate treatment, and I am positive that Mr. Brown will look into it and figure out what happened, and I'm sure he'll apologize to you as well. That's not the way we do things normally here, and I also commend you for the affordable housing. It is an issue. I think Mr. Perkins brought that up at the last meeting, and I work in housing as well, so I appreciate everything you're doing there, and I'm going to ask, you know, just see if staff will, you know, relook at the whole incident.
Well, again, I want to make sure that it's not me, it's my bishop, Bishop Charles Young, who initiated that, and he in turn reached out to me and hired me to be the head phone, but I didn't start it. I'm just here to run it.
Well, thank you for running it. We have tried to look at that and see if we can go down on the cost for affordable housing, and we were given legal opinion that we could not due to our bonds. So, again, appreciate you coming, and I'm very sorry that you had that kind of incident. I know that Mr. Sorrell will look into it for you, and he's the head of the head. So,
Okay.
if you would, I think we have your number. They'll be in touch with you.
Thank you very much.
very
Thank you for hearing me
much.
today.
And I want to thank you as well and apologize as well. It's, once you've gone through a bad experience, you want to put it behind you and don't give people an opportunity to learn. It would be good to look at our protocols, particularly when someone is looking for a supervisor. What are the steps we take? Because obviously we're a professional organization and we need to set up protocols that work for our organization, but for the customers as well. And obviously there was a breakdown there, and we need to learn from what your experience was. And I know Mr. Brown will be on it, and Mr. Sorrell, and I appreciate you coming.
Thank you for hearing me again.
Thank you. And good luck with your project. The next person is David Everett. Mr. Everett.
Good afternoon. Hi, I'm David Everett. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I've been, I guess, for the last 29 years, trying to restore the western border of our historical preservation district, mostly in the DeVilliers Street area, A Street, B Street. And that area, when I started in 1990, was scary. And so I kind of was hoping that the city would do something, and the city really didn't have the power. And then I hoped a rich guy would come in and buy the area up, fix it up real nice. And they were smarter than that because there's a lot of work to it. So I quit complaining about my concerns and started doing it myself. And I've done over 60 renovations in the western border of North Hill. I have cleaned up DeVilliers Street and created a lot of affordable housing because some of the cottages are little 600 square foot shotguns, and then I've gotten duplexes, triplexes, and quadruplexes that were on that side and made them nice again and basically put them back into work because they were abandoned crack shacks. And I actually had to physically chase crack smoking junkies out. I'm 6'3" and I'm usually packing. Not today though. And but I actually
That's
had
all
to
right,
chase them
we all
out.
are too. So.
So it's been an adventure to basically revitalize that western border. And of course the cost of keeping up with the old historical homes, I still have 48 of them. Out of the 48, we have 60 rentable units. Out of that, we have about 23 fully furnished for our military, because we love our military, and we find that a lot of times they come back from, overseas and stuff and really don't have anything, And so we have complete fully furnished places with pictures on the walls and TVs, and they just have to bring their rucksacks and set them down, and they're home. Having said that, cost of doing business is very difficult, keeping all that kind of stuff running. And it's been brought to my attention. My office manager called me and said, well, one of our tenants had a leak. And he called us in, and we ran over there as soon as we got the call, because that's, like a fire, you want to go over there and get that thing fixed. And we fixed it right away. We got and some of these properties, when we bought them, they were in a duplex, triplex, quadruplex kind of configuration. So, and a lot of times they would only have one water meter. So there's a lot of them on in my personal name. It's okay, except for there was a $600 water bill from that leak, and apparently we had a leak years ago that we had abated at a different property, and so we called about it and said, hey, there's a $600 power bill. Could we get this is a one-time fee thing? And they said, no, you've used that. And I was like, but we've never used that there. They said, yeah, but you used it on a different property. But I didn't use it on this property. It doesn't matter. It's attached to your personal name. I was like, well, that's not fair, because, if everybody else, like, the individual owners of different properties, or if they're a tenant at a different property and the water's on in their name, they would get that same ability to have a one-time leak fee. And apparently the the rule at the moment is it's attached to your personal name. I would like to bring up that, you know, maybe we could put that on the individual property instead of stigmatizing a person. Because, you know, now I've got, forever and ever, I can't use anything because of a leak that happened at a different property a long time ago. It just doesn't seem fair. And the price of trying to do what I do is exorbitant anyway, trying to keep those old houses up and running. And having myself exposed to that level of, you know, $600 out of your pocket, that's, you know, that could be 6 or 8 months of profit from that one property off that one thing. It can keep you from being able to survive in this market. And we're just trying to make sure, you know, if there's any way we can fix problems like that, that, you know, you guys could be aware of it and see if we can maybe make it a little bit more fair for people like myself that it's, you know, basically a labor of love and trying to, you know, save history, you know, because all these houses were historical properties that, you know, had fallen into a horrible state of disrepair. And, you know, so I wanted to bring that up and see if there was anything that we could, you know,
Sure.
do about that.
Thank you, Mr. Everett. Mr. Perkins?
Man, I applaud what you're doing. I tell you, I'm amazed how that area is coming back. How far over does the western border go?
Well, technically, DeVilliers Street is the western
Oh,
border,
okay.
and I bought everything on the other side of the Historical Preservation District side of the street, you know,
Yeah.
because that was the side that basically wasn't under any historical protection covenants, and that was the side that basically fallen into the abandoned crack shack, you know, with the broken window principle. You know, nobody wants to live next door to the house that's, you know, got 3-foot tall weeds.
But
and
I
stuff.
tell you
And-
what, that area is really
Yeah.
going strong. I'm friend with the Benbows, and I metal detect and dig old bottles and stuff,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
love old
Oh,
history.
we
so
find that all the time. I found cannonballs.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
And so I
yeah.
was, where they built them cottages across from Benzo's, we had a metal detecting club thing, found all kind of stuff. But I'm just amazed at how that area is reduced.
Yeah.
And some of those little 1,000, 1,100 square foot places are going for $200,000. I mean,
Isn't that
it's
crazy?
It's crazy.
Across from my little rentals, honest to goodness, you know, because I fought. I could tell you, I could be here all day telling you funny stories about the craziness that went on trying to restore that whole entire area. But right next to my little rentals that I couldn't get anybody, people literally thought I'd lost my mind when I went in there to fix that area up. And now they're building $460,000 houses across the street from my little rentals that I saved years ago. And I'm like, I paved the way for that to happen. And
And by the way, so did we.
yeah, exactly.
But there's a lot of truth to that. But the point I want to make is this is something I've asked about before, you know. And I know that we have an additional policy that may help out before we do any policy changes, and that's we granted a second one where you get a second one and we'll go up to 50% on the second one. So at the very least, you can take advantage of that.
But if I'm not mistaken, they were saying that that's your last thing and you'll be banned forever, amen, you know,
that's
no
the
matter what.
policy
And I thought,
now.
that's not a good policy.
Yeah. And I have brought this up before. I don't really think that policy is fair when we have people that may have 15 or 20 properties and they've got the utilities in their name. I mean, I'm wondering if staff can look into it, if there's a way we can make the policy more fair, because this has come up before, and I've expressed dissatisfaction with the policy before, but we've never been able to change it.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Ms. Campbell?
I'd like to commend you for your work there.
Thank
I
you.
worked downtown for probably 30-plus years, and just
Do you remember how it used to be?
Oh, yeah.
So,
Certainly.
Mr. Everett, if you will, just answer questions, because we,
Oh.
yeah.
I'm
We-
very chatty, I'm sorry.
Yes.
That's okay.
Thank you.
That's okay. But, you know, I commend you for what you've done in that area. I eat down there quite often on DeViller, and that's a great area, and I commend what you've done.
Thank you.
Sounds like maybe you're gonna reap some benefits from what you sow, eventually.
Sometimes I wonder.
I think Ms. Benson would, I felt her heart just warming as you were speaking, because she's so into no urban sprawl and redoing, you know, old areas. So she was beaming over there while you were speaking. So thank you very much for what you do.
Thanks, Vicki.
I do think it would be a good idea to look at this policy again and see, you know, I don't want it to cost all of our ratepayers a lot of money, but I do think it would be nice if we did it per property and not per person. I don't know how many people do that, and I do know that a lot of people, my rent, where I I rent my office, the water's included, so, you know, hopefully, I did have a leak this year, and I don't even know what it cost my landlord, so, you know, it's just something to think about. Thank you.
And thank you for your beaming, Lois.
Dr. Walker?
Madam Chair, I would like to have Mr. Sorrell, if you don't mind, confirm exactly what the policy is. Is the waiver of the cost attached to a person's name or to the property?
Mr. Sorrell?
It's attached to a person's name, and you can get a complete write-off for one time, and then a 50% write-off for a second time in that name. And the reason why it's done that way is because we have a lot of people go through just home after home after home and keep asking more and more and more for that, and the board has denied that in the past, but, you know, we'd be glad to look at it again.
Madam Chairman, I would recommend that we instruct staff to look at it again, and certainly it's a handicap for a person who's a substantial redeveloper of downtown, and we all want to be in favor of that, just as we want to be in favor of low-cost housing for homeless people. So I would ask that we do that.
Thank you. I sense that everyone here would like to have that visited. And maybe we start with our new attorney who can look at the policy we have and make some suggestions from his end, and then staff look from an operational point of view.
And could you forward us the policy, each of us the policy? Because I read it, and I was under the impression, I don't know if I've misinterpreted it or if staff has misinterpreted it. It's probably me. But my interpretation of the policy, of the you know, one-time forgiveness policy that we quote, was when there was an unexplainable situation, we couldn't figure out why there was a leak, there was no documentation whatsoever. I've been under the impression in the past that when there's a documented leak, a plumber's bill, receipts for all that didn't count toward the one-time policy. I don't know if I'm wrong on that or not, but if we could get clarification on that as well.
Good point, Mr. Perkins, because that's really a different issue entirely. Ms. Campbell?
And Mr. Everett, thank you very much for coming down and bringing this to our attention without.
Okay, and I do have that $600 bill they're wanting me to pay, so just keep me in the loop on how that comes back, because I know, right? Cashier. We'll take cash. Thank you so much.
And thank you for what you do. I used to be on the Historic Preservation Board, so I appreciate that. And I also, in a former life, was a city councilman who used to go into the crack houses. So I saw what you have displaced in that. So
Thank you.
Keep on.
I will. Thank you.
Ms. Campbell?
And we also, we have ways to let you put that into payments too, if that would help, if it ends up, you know, we don't get this changed quick enough, but there are ways you can make payments, so I would talk to them about that. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. And I have no more pink slips. If there's no one else who wishes to address us in open forum, thank you both for coming. We come now to presentations, and it's time for the Recycle Star. Yay. And we need to select this week's winner, and we have a stellar group of 16 people who have done an admirable job. So, Ms. Campbell, did you do it last week?
I did it last week.
Okay, well then I'll let,
Oh, you did?
you both did. What do you, would you please do it? Okay, and it is number 5. Wait, you get to read the name.
Oh, number 5.
Yes.
David Musselman.
Okay.
Number 5. David Musselman.
And David will be recognized for his successful recycling and awarded all kinds of, a chance to win $1 million? I can't remember. Congratulations, Mr. Musselman, and thank you for all of those people who qualified. We are now at the approval of the minutes of the meeting of June 25th. Is there a motion?
So move.
It's been moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any changes, additions, corrections? Please vote. And it passes 4-0. Next is the Citizen Advisory Committee report. Ms. Campbell.
Thank you. The Citizen Advisory Committee met on July 16th at 3 p.m. All members were present with the exception of Chuck Kimball, Mr. Ponson, and Dr. Walker. Item F was a purchase of Thiogard magnesium hydroxide slurry. Recommendation was made by Mr. Perkins, seconded by Ms. Ben, that the board approve a contract extension with Premier Magnesia LLC for the sole source purchase of Thiogard at the price of $2.81 a gallon with funding from the appropriate budget line, and the committee voted 8-0 in favor. Item G was a developer payment for future relocation and improvements for Kahili Ridge Subdivision. The recommendation, motion made by Ms. Benson, seconded by Ms. Schneier, that the board authorize ECUA's executive director to enter into an agreement with Smart Living LLC to allow the ECUA to accept a mutually agreed upon amount, approximately $75,000 in funds from the developer, and apply them to future relocation and upgrade of infrastructure serving the associated development, and the committee voted 8-0 in favor. Item H was the award of purchase yard collection truck prototype. The recommendation was made by Ms. Ritz and seconded by Ms. Ben that the board waive ECUA's normal purchasing procedures and issue a letter of intent to purchase one automated yard collection truck prototype at a cost of $511,879 with actual funding from the vehicle included as part of the fiscal year 2020 Sanitation Vehicle Replacement Capital Improvement Program. Mr. Rudd presented a video illustrating the current method of collecting yard trash with existing trucks and the improved method utilizing the truck prototype that they were proposing. The truck provided the dual capability of compacting yard debris and lifting large debris with an attached knuckle boom, which will reduce injuries, collection time, and save money. And the board voted 8-0 in favor. Item J was unfinished business, security deposits for other than single-family residential customers. Motion was made by Ms. Benson and seconded by Ms. Schneier to refer this to staff to develop a policy for commercial refunds after 60 months of good payment history and to evaluate such issues the policy may have regarding the impact on bonds and the impact on our bottom line, and come back to the CAC with a recommendation. The committee voted 8-0 in favor. Item K was a new business, the 2018 annual report. Ms. Ritz commented on the annual report that was published. She said that it was readable, understandable information, and the graphics were very good and helpful to explain the verbiage. She asked how many comments we had received about them, and Mr. Sorrell answered that Ms. Bowers had completed this and that we received quite a few positive comments, especially on the graphics. We also talked about the hosting of the LEAP group for 2020. I would like to move items F through H for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Please vote. And it passes 4-0. By the way, during our open forum, I see that Ms. Harrell and the team was busy and got our technology fixed, so thank you very much for that. Does that conclude your report?
Thank you, yes, that concludes my report.
Thank you. All right, the next item is the approval of Emerald Coast Utilities Authority Employment Agreement. Let's see, that is on page 9A, and this is the agreement between the board and our new attorney, Mr. Robert Beasley. And is it between you, Mr. Beasley, or your firm?
Sorry, I'm trying to figure out the intercom here. It should be between the ECUA and the firm of Litvak,
It
Beasley,
is,
Wilson,
okay,
and
I
Ball.
see that, okay. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
It's been
The second?
moved and seconded. Any discussion? I did have one question, which I asked Mr. Sorrell beforehand. There's a section that talks about if an emergency matter arises, and it gives the executive director the power to direct the attorney. And I asked what constitutes a legal emergency, and have we had any? And you might share your response, Mr. Sorrell.
Actually, I'm not aware that we've ever had any, but this makes a provision just in case. I have the authority in emergency conditions to be able to make certain expenditures and then report them to the board after the fact. And this does is it allows Mr. Beasley to be able to communicate with me, and we can use my powers to do whatever is necessary in emergency conditions. But basically, I'm not aware of any that we've ever had that would need this power. It's just part of the agreement.
All right, if there's no more discussion, we're voting on this contract. Employment agreement, I guess it is. And it passes 4-0. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
The next item is the proposed water, wastewater, and system budget, sources and usage. Is there a motion? Mr. Perkins?
I'll make a motion
Okay.
that we adopt resolution 1905.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
A second.
It's been moved and seconded.
It's hard when you don't have 5 people here.
I know. Mr. Sorrell, do you want to just briefly outline what we're doing so that anybody watching will know?
Yes, ma'am. This, first off, the sources and uses. This shows the proposed sources and actually the uses, the revenues and expenditures in normal terms of the proposed budget for the water and wastewater systems for the year 2020. The resolution which is attached is 1905. It essentially allows us to give notice of a public hearing for the rate increase, and the public hearing will take place August 27th at 3 p.m.
Okay, Mr. Perkins.
Yeah, you know, there's basically a small rate increase included in this, and then also in the sanitation budget, and I have gone along with it, you know, and am intending to vote for it, but I just want to make everybody aware that I'm also intending to put an amendment on it when we get to the final part of it, that the staff find a way to fund the River Garden sewer expansion project for that year. So it wasn't above the line, but I'm asking them to find the money to put, you know, to make it happen that year. So just so y'all aren't caught off guard and don't think I'm ambushing anybody or anything like that, let you know that you know, that I'm going to be asking for that when we get to approving the final budget. This sets the public hearing. This isn't a vote on it. This is just setting a public hearing. So.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Ms. Campbell?
Still time to change that mind. 30 cents is not a bad increase for all that we are going through with inflow and infiltration. And I spoke today to a lady about, you know, the problems with sanitary sewer overflow and how we're addressing it through the inflow and infiltration program, the FOG program, and then the problem that we're having with flushable wipes. So I think that in light of everything we're going through, this is a very small increase, and so I'm willing to vote for it as well. How much is that, River? Do you remember?
Mr.
If I
Perkins?
may.
Around $1 million, maybe slightly under.
Okay.
And the reason I didn't, you know, take another one out and replace it is I thought it would be better to give staff the flexibility to do that rather than me doing it. But if it comes down to it, I mean, I'll go there. But I thought it would be better that staff could adjust it. Maybe that there's some excess money in year-end contingencies. It may be that some of the other projects may be delayed for certain reasons or something. But I'd like to, you know, it's been many years since they've been trying to do that. I have supported, you know, sewer expansion and septic tank abatement for many years. I don't think I've ever had a project. You know, I did have one project in my district, you know, in the 25 years I've been here. So I don't think it's asking too much. I mean, I voted for some pretty big expenditures for some of the other districts.
Yeah, and I appreciate some of the things that have been done in my district. So, I know I had a little thing on there, but I don't think it made the cut either. Or I would the people ended up not wanting it. I would have offered it, but I don't think it made it through the cut either. But I'll be mindful of that when we're voting. Thank you.
Let me ask you something, Mr. Perkins. Has that gone through engineering, or, I mean, is it shovel-ready, or do we have perhaps 2 years to do the engineering and then do the bid and that sort of thing?
I think engineering's taken a preliminary look, and I don't know if they've done hard engineering to put it in. Maybe Stacy could say, but it doesn't look like it. He shook his head no, so it doesn't look like it. So I wouldn't object to a phased program where we do the engineering 100,000 or 200,000 this year, and then the following year, we do the capital part of it.
And that might be a
Yeah.
good way to enter it into, because it does take time to do all the engineering, the lift station location, and all of that sort of thing. So I think your board is friendly to what you're going to do, ambush or no. Okay, we have not voted on that, so we're voting on Resolution 1905. And it passes 4-0. The next item is the proposed sanitation and materials recycling facility budget, sources and usage, and I'm having trouble saying uses, and adoption of Resolution 1906. Is there a motion?
Move Resolution 1906.
Moved
On second.
and seconded. Mr. Sorrell, will you briefly outline this one?
Yes, ma'am. This is the sanitation budget. It includes a rate increase of $1.06 per month, so it's a very small increase for the sanitation collection. It also funds the materials recycling facility, along with all the collection procedures. So we're providing the same level of service, and the big difference is it's going to be able to provide funding for the materials recycling facility so we can continue to operate the MRF.
Okay, is there a motion? Did we get it on the table? Okay, it's on the table. Any questions, comments? If not, please vote. And it passes 4-0. Let me ask you, Mr. Sorrell, and Mr. Rudd is not here. Are we continuing to have trouble recruiting and retaining drivers?
Yes, but not as much as we had there for a while. We've made some changes with their incentive programs, which has helped. But I think it's going to be a continuing issue from now until probably eternity, and with that type of driver, because they sometimes look at simply a wage. And right now with for example, the hurricane repairs over in Panama City, they're paying very high wages, hourly wages only, for those particular type of truck drivers. And a lot of those drivers are going over there and working, and some of them are finding it unacceptable, and some of them is unsuccessful, and they come back. But basically the answer is yes, but not as much as we used to have.
There have been some interesting articles, I think in the New York Times, about the percentage of people that are employed in various states, particularly in the Northeast, where truck drivers are a large percentage of those employed in those states, like more than half in New England. And the coming of automated trucks. There is these self-driving cars and self-driving trucks are in the works, and it is going to change the employment profiles in the United States. Now, I don't think we will ever replace our drivers with automated trucks, because there's more to garbage collection, which means we might have a flood of qualified people. Who knows? But it's just an interesting trend to watch. Ms. Campbell?
It is, need always drives solution. And I wondered how, my light was on because I wondered how PJPSC was doing with their new program. Have they graduated? Do you know? Yeah.
I do not know, ma'am.
I was going to ask Sheila that when I was at Rotary today, but she wasn't there. But I talked to a young man today, and he didn't know where he was going in life. And I said, well, have you thought about, truck driving because they make a lot of money and we have a shortage nationwide. So I wondered if they had turned any out yet. Be interesting to know.
It would be, yeah. I see no other lights. We are now bidding on resolution, what is it? 1906. Sorry, it's not showing up on my thing. Please vote. Oh, that's why it's not showing up. Oh, so sorry. That's right. I made my comments after the fact. Never mind. The next item is item E, 9E, award of bid Talcon Group LLC, Inter-Rarity Island Sewer Expansion, modification agreement for MSBU. Is there a motion? Sorry, water service renewals annual contract. I'm sorry, I'm totally distracted by these things sliding across.
I know.
And I can't read it, so, anyway, we're at 9D, water service renewals annual contract. I apologize. Is there a motion?
Move staff recommendation.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Any discussion? Ms. Campbell?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, this is a renewable contract. Please vote. And it passes 4-0. Now we come to 9E, award of bid Talcon Group LLC, Inter-Rarity Island Sewer Expansion, modification of agreement for MSBU. Will you briefly outline this one for us, Mr. Sorrell?
Yes, ma'am. Some time ago, the Inter-Rarity Island, I think it was Development Corporation, was a privately owned entity, and they served both water and sewer to the people on Inter-Rarity Island. That particular development company went bankrupt. I believe the gentleman that owned it passed away, and the heirs did not want to continue the service, so they just basically closed up and ended up with Escambia County being the receiver, or being the court-awarded receiver for that. And we have been working with them, and we agreed with them that if we found a way to upgrade the water system and the wastewater system, and that our ratepayers didn't have to pay for it, that we would be more than happy to take it over and maintain it from that point forward. The water system is under work now. It's essentially getting, it's almost done, I believe. So now we're working on the wastewater system. That's what this is. The bids were open on June 6th. They came in a little higher than originally expected. I think a lot of that's due to the water table. I mean, when you dig down out there, you dig down a foot or two, you run into water, so you get into a lot of dewatering and gets into a lot of additional expenses. So the low bidder was Talcon Group. They've done some work for us in the past, and I didn't have any reason at this point anyway to reject their bid. So they were the low bid at $4.5 million, which is over what was originally proposed, I think was $4.2 million. So we went back to the county, and they've increased the MSBU, the Municipal Service Benefit Unit. Now, and I believe that's already been completed. I think they've increased that to, I think it was 5.7 million, I believe. And that covers engineering, the new increase plus contingencies. We think we're going to have some issues with the groundwater I mentioned and some of the construction. But it's my understanding that the county commissioners have already passed that. So what we need to do is just pass this, and then we'll proceed on with the award of the contract, and we'll get the work started with Talcon Group going ahead and put in the wastewater system, collection system out on Inter-Rarity Island.
Ms. Campbell?
Move staff recommendation, and I have some comments.
And Dr. Walker?
I'll second it, and I
Been
have a
moved.
comment.
Moved and seconded. Ms.
Well,
Campbell?
You know, I'm glad that we're coming to an end on this one and the next one. I just happened to be at the board meeting when they were voting on these two last week, and I just wanted to commend the Board of County Commission and this ECUA board. These issues were not issues created by this board or the current Board of County Commission board, but they have come together to work together to rectify the situation. I realized that this developer was the same developer that developed Penn Haven, where we had a lot of issues. So, you know, it seems like the same folks keep doing the same kind of things again and again. But I just wanted to commend the Board of County Commission and this board for working so hard to make these next two items move through so quickly.
Thank you for those comments, Ms. Campbell. Dr. Walker?
I too want to express appreciation to the Board of County Commissioners for their cooperation in this matter. It certainly would not be possible to have it done without their contribution.
It's so nice to have those people with an upgraded system. Do you know what the per capita cost for this overage, what's the impact going to be on the people who live there? Mr. Sorrell, do you know?
No, ma'am, I don't, but I think they stretch the payments out for, I think it's like 15 years, so it's going to be minimal, on their normal payments. So but I don't know the exact amount, ma'am.
Okay. It would be interesting to get that information at some point, not urgent. Okay, with no more discussion, please vote.
And this one's in your district, right?
It is. And it passes 4-0. Okay. The next item, 9F, is Creekwood Subdivision, amend existing documents, lift station and collection system upgrade. Mr. Sorrell, do you want to outline this one?
Yes, ma'am. This is another project where we worked with the county and the county staff and the commission, and were able to effect a MSBU, Municipal Service Benefit Unit project here, to upgrade a lift station that was built and operated privately. Private developer built this, and the subdivision ended up maintaining it, which created all kinds of issues. So they came to us in the county, wanted it to be done and upgraded, and then the ECUA will take over the maintenance of it. We've agreed to that. This particular one in front of you is for a change order of approximately $65,000, I believe. But this project is almost complete. I think we've already accepted the lift station. So it is operating. I think there's still some bypass or some other things in place there just in case for emergency procedures. But basically it's up and operating, and this project's almost done. So the $65,000 is for the change order to pay the project off.
Fantastic. Ms. Campbell?
Yeah, I'd like to move staff recommendation, and I'm very happy that this one's done.
Is there a second? Ms.
Second.
Perkins? Any discussion or comments? Please vote. And it passes 4-0. Yes, nice to see that done. I know, Ms. Campbell, you've worked hard on that, and the homeowners certainly are appreciative of your efforts, we would hope. Yes, good. Okay, the next item is, wait a minute, the budget report.
Emergency purchase order, ma'am. 9G, I think, was the next one.
Okay.
It's just an informational
Yeah,
item,
it
but
was
I
an
think we missed
informational,
that.
yes. Yeah, so it does not require board action, yeah. So we come to the budget report. Do you have anything to bring to us, Ms. Shelton?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I've presented for you today preliminary quarterly financial statements through the fiscal year through June 30. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer those.
Anyone on the board?
Okay.
No red flags?
Not anything other than what we've already been talking about.
Yeah, okay, okay. All right, thank you very much. I see no lights, so must be satisfied. We come now to the Executive Director's report. Mr. Sorrell?
Yes, ma'am. Just a few small items. You've heard me talk about cybersecurity and about potential hacking, and we've done a lot about that, which I'm not going to elaborate on, but just to give you an example, yesterday I got a call from people in Human Resources, and they wanted to know how I wanted my direct deposit changed. And I said, I don't even know what you're talking about. What do you mean? Well, they received an email from somebody using my name saying they wanted the direct deposit changed and they wanted the information. Well, that was turned over to IT immediately, and that account has been blocked and so on. That to give you an idea of just some of the things that's happening, and those are the kind of hacking attempts that we're facing. Now we have protections in place, and I'm not going to elaborate on those, but that'll give you some idea. If you get anything like that, whatever you do on your own personal or ECUA, accounts, do not open those, because those are clearly hacking attempts trying to get access to our system or access to your accounts. It's just, I found it kind of amusing that it was my own personal that they tried to get a hold of yesterday, and the Human Resources Director received one. It referred to her as Kimberly. Well, I never refer to her as Kimberly. I always call her Kim. So she knew right away that was a red flag. So she called IT, and they immediately blocked the account. So just to give you a warning, be very careful, because it's going on in a big way. The welding on dryer number 1 is well underway. That's where we're putting a hard ox material on the paddle dryers and some of the shaft materials. The way that works is it's a huge tubular facility, and it takes a sludge and it rotates and rotates with paddles and actually dries those materials. Well, the materials here are full of sand, so it's like constantly rubbing in sandpaper, just constantly being sandpapered, and it wears and wears. So when the dryer has problems, we have to put on special hard ox materials. It's a very, very hard metal that has to be specially welded, and that's what's underway, and that's what the emergency notification was, so that we can get the dryer back in service. Last year you heard me talk about how we did work on some of the fuel tanks that we have around. We spent a lot of time and money going around checking all the fuel tanks. And it's what we do on an annual basis to make sure we're ready for hurricanes, but we have lots of fuel tanks around. The one on Pensacola Beach was an issue, if you recall, some of the tests we ran, that it wouldn't start. Well, when we checked into it, the fuel was contaminated, had water in it, a bunch of other things, and that's all been taken care of. But what we found is Jerry Piscopo, who runs maintenance and construction, he found that tank to be faulty, and he's replacing that tank as we speak. There's a new one on the beach right now, and it's going to be hooked up, so we will have a new tank for the emergency generators on the beach for our wastewater treatment plant. We also have an issue with the 12-inch water main on Bayfront near Hawkshaw downtown, and basically we found out that water main's 10 feet from where it's supposed to be. And it's one of those things we're just going to have to deal with, and we're looking now trying to figure out how to replace that or how to remove that and relocate it. So we're in the process of doing that now. There's a development taking place, and they actually found that the main was not where it was supposed to be. Well, the surveyor who did that work used the wrong control point, and the main was put in the wrong place at the wrong time. So now we're going to have to work on that and get that taken care of, which Stacy's on top of that one, so we'll get that done too. Just not quite sure how we're going to do it yet, because taking a 12-inch force main out of service and replacing it is not an easy chore. 12-inch force main has lots of water in it. It's a big pipe and so on and so forth, and you can't just put it anywhere. Moreover, we don't want to put it under the road unless we have to, because the city just paved a bunch of streets, and it's very, very expensive to put something like that on the roadway. So we're working on it. You know, it's kind of, it wasn't really our fault, but yet it's our main, so it's our fault in that respect. But basically the surveyor and the engineering company who did the work at the time just plain messed up and put the pipe 10 feet away from where it was supposed to be, but we're working on it. Last thing I have to let you know, the Moorbark grinder that we use for yard waste and we produce a compost, we had a major fault there. The breaker system had what's called an arc flash. Essentially, it burned up all the controls in the arc flash unit, or in the control unit there in the breaker box. Most people don't really know what I'm talking about here, but to give you some comparison, your house is probably a 200 amp service. That's amperes, that's electrical term, but basically this Moorbark runs a 2,000 ampere service. And something was strong enough just to burn up that entire service and the breaker box and everything. Could have been lightning, we're not sure. Could be something else. It could be an overdraw, we just don't know, but that's a 2,000 amp service. And it's going to cost us about $20,000 to repair that. So that's well underway, but that just gives you some idea of some of the things the colonel has to deal with on a daily basis, and he's got it underway as usual. He'll get it fixed, but it's just not going to be cheap. We're told him we're going to have to put him in charge of finance before long, because he spends money faster than we can make it, but all he's doing is repairing things. So it's just Patty talked to him this morning, I think, about that, about you know, how he just needs money after money just to keep things running. But that's just one example. It's something we didn't do wrong and didn't have anything to do with, but it's a very, very expensive repair on a major electric service. And that's all my report, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Sorrell. Ms. Campbell?
Do we have any recourse on the surveyor issue?
Probably I'm not going to speak too much about that at this point, but Rob and I have had discussions about that, and we're probably going to take further action.
Thank you.
Dr. Walker?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to know how old that water line is, the 12-inch line downtown.
Not very old. Mr. Sorrell?
You know, I don't know that date. I don't know if Stacy doesn't know either. He's shaking his head, but it's not very old. It's a PVC main, so it's not one of the old mains.
Was it part of the Hawkshaw development?
It's about 2005 or 6, I think.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's too new to replace. Thank you, Mr. Sorrell. We come now to our attorney's report. Welcome aboard.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the board. My report will be more procedural today, just to tell you what we have done. Our firm has captured and documented kind of what I consider the universe of ECUA legal work. We've created a series of spreadsheets to map all cases that are outstanding and who the counsel is assigned to those cases. A lot of your cases have outside counsel. For instance, your automobile cases are referenced to the League of Cities, and their insurance company assigns counsel, Peter Martin out of Tallahassee. I've spoke to each of those outside counsel and coordinated with them kind of what they're doing, how we'll be working together in those things, those type of details. I've met with Mr. Odom once on the phone and then once for a couple hours last Friday on transition of the files. I've received from his office 8 file cabinets of paper files, which represent, I think, all current files with respect to non-litigation matters. I've received from the Beggs and Lane firm 4 or 5 litigation matters. At this point, the Beggs and Lane firm, I do not think house any current ECUA matters. They only received a few files anyway as interim. So we received back those files now. Again, we checked with, cross-checked what they received versus what Mr. Odom had, what Mr. Odom had versus now what we have. So we have this universe captured, so to speak, so that nothing slips through the crack. We've also, I've talked to opposing counsel in 2 of the bigger litigation files, let them know who I am, what we're doing, and so forth, and just had general meetings with them. Finally, our staff has all reviewed and studied the ECUA code and the sunshine regulations so that they're all apprised of those and fresh on those issues. So that's what we've done to date.
Well, thank you so much. Any questions for the attorney? Again, we're glad to have you, Robert. Unfinished business. I had one item that I just want to bring up for discussion. It's been about 6-8 months since we changed the time of our meetings from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock. I don't notice that we've absorbed any more guests, constituents here, so it has not had any impact on that. But I am aware that some of our staff members have been forced to stay after hours because our meetings have run rather long, which is fine. But I wondered if we might want to consider going back to the 2 o'clock meeting time. And I'm throwing it out. I'm not making a recommendation. I just think it's worth discussing because this was a change that we made, and every once in a while we ought to look at our changes. Mr. Perkins.
I personally prefer the 3 o'clock, you know, that way I have trouble making it by 2 a lot of times. And pretty good crowd. I mean, you know, a couple of them are individual issues, but you know, I feel like at 3 o'clock they can get off work and get here, whereas at 2 o'clock it might be hard if somebody has a pressing issue.
Okay.
And the staff, I mean, we use flex time. Do we use flex time? I mean, I would certainly be in favor of letting them have flex time. If they stay a little bit later on a board meeting or a committee meeting, they go home earlier, you know, on another day.
Mr. Sorrell?
Yeah, we use a lot of flex time throughout the whole ECUA, and I make arrangements for the staff, but Mrs. Benson's correct. You know, some of the ladies and stuff here are staying much later than they used to, but, you know, I make arrangements for them if we have to.
Dr. Walker?
I take it that, I assume that consideration of a change in our time would also involve consideration of a change of the committee, the Citizens Advisory Committee. So I suggest that we have it discussed by the committee as part of the any decision-making process.
Well, at this point, I think we're just asking for input. If this board is not interested in doing it, I don't see any point in referring it.
Well, I'll say that my opinion is I don't care. Either way works fine for me.
Ms. Campbell?
I serve at, you know, whatever the people need. I do notice a few more people here. lately, and I don't know if that's due to the time change, but it doesn't bother me. I'm good either way. But I do want to make sure that people are happy, and I haven't heard any complaints since we went to the 3 o'clock, so maybe we should stay there. But I do agree that it should go through CAC if we do decide to do anything.
Well, I don't see an appetite at this point to change it. It's just one of those decisions that every once in a while we do this and we say, is it working? So that's the job. Okay, we have no new business on our agenda. Board communications, anyone have anything to bring before us?
I just, a couple of the other board members that appreciated the support for the county commission. I just hope staff is, and I know we are reaching out to the new administrator and letting her know that if there's any way we can be helpful on things, we'd like to have open lines of communication, and the board stands ready to be supportive of them and work and continue the positive relationship that we currently have. It hasn't always been like that, and it's nice to have a good, positive relationship between the boards.
Indeed. Anyone else? We now come to open forum. I have no more pink sheets. Does anyone wish to address us in open forum? Okay, we are adjourned.